Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Helsen. I'm a composer, conductor and singer from Belgium, and I will be moderating this panel discussion focusing on the needs in higher music education, the changing role of the conductors and ideas for the future. We have a wonderful panel with us for this discussion, and I suggest you all introduce yourself briefly before we dive into some questions.
Okay, then I start. My name is Jan Schumacher. I am from Germany. I was teaching as a conducting professor for several years in very different kind of academies with beginners, with master students, and I regularly also teach master classes for conductors in the world. And we just published a book about choral conducting in Germany and also a conducting app. So this could be also maybe interesting in this whole question about education. Maybe that's enough already, no?
Yeah, I am Kristi Kiilu, professor of music education here in this institution in Estonia, and I am also choir conductor, conducting with boys choir.
Hello, I'm Seán Doherty. I'm a composer from Ireland. I am assistant professor at Dublin City University. I teach undergraduates, postgraduates, PhD students. With my colleague Dr. Roisin Bloody, we established the first Masters in Choral Studies in Ireland, and on that I teach choral composition, choral arranging, and early music history.
Hello, I'm David Puderbaugh. I'm the Director of Choral Studies at the University of Iowa in the Midwest of the United States. There I lead the choral program of multiple choirs. I teach graduate choral conducting. I advise the doctoral theses. I think that about sums it up.
Okay, let's dive into some questions then. In your countries and institutions, what is going well in higher music education, and what are the biggest problems or needs you are facing in your daily work right now? Who wants to start to dive in these topics?
I can start again because we had a roundtable discussion last year about this very similar topic, and I was thinking before what is interesting in Germany and what is really great that more and more academies offer their students to work with professional ensembles in the study, which on the other hand, and that's the problem, leads to the fact that they don't want to work anymore with normal choirs. So we have a lot of really well-trained people who don't find the choir because obviously there are not so many professional choirs, but they feel overqualified. And this is a bit the problem because there where we need the people in the school or in churches, there we lack good people. And so this is for me a big challenge. And yeah, because when I studied many years ago, we did not have these chances with the professionals so much, and so you tried to build your own group or to bring your amateurs somewhere, which I think is more fulfilling also. And this sense of maybe pedagogic even is going away a little bit, and I think that this is a challenge that we have. So out of great opportunities, we have some problems on the basis, let's say like this.
Is this something you recognize, or is the situation in your country different?
You're all looking at me.
Okay. Guest first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Boy, that's interesting. Just interesting to hear you to say those things. I would say that ever since the pandemic in the United States, the number of positions for choral conductors has really gone down, has dropped quite a bit. And so I would say we currently have probably too many highly qualified conductors for the number of positions that are out there, especially, and I'm speaking about higher education really, I think in the United States still kind of, I would say the nexus of the high quality choral music making is still at the universities. However, I'll speak later about something that's going really well that's a little bit different than that. But I would say before the pandemic, the number of positions you would see posted were quite robust. I would say. Ever since the pandemic, I think a lot of choral programs lost their funding. There were schools that closed, and we just don't see the number of positions that are open. So that's something that we are in. It's an issue right now, but I'll let other people talk before I talk about the flip side, which is also positive.
Jan, it seems like a great problem to have. That the students get such amazing opportunities to work with professional groups. I mean, we don't have that. I'm not sure if that's a problem, but that we don't have the chance to have that problem in Ireland.
It's a luxury problem.
It's a first world problems. So we do well in Ireland. There's a lot of communication and cooperation between the different institutions. So I sit on the chairs of music and higher education. It's a panel who meet twice a year, and we discuss the problems that we're seeing in problems and opportunities with the music students across all the institutions of higher education. So that could be the use of AI. Are you going back to exams? What are you doing with auditions this year? So there's a huge amount of cooperation that happens among the heads of music and higher education. Is one thing I think we do well in Ireland. It's such a small country. I mean, there's only 7 million people in it, but it's great to have that cooperation.
Yeah, listen to him. Actually, I would say that Estonia is lucky. We have only 1.3 million people, but we still have at least this music academy, which is really the outstanding professional music institution, and also we have one in Viljandi. So, and what is really good is that we train choir conductors, and also we give music teachers quite thorough conducting hours. So we think that this is something that helps us to go on with this choral issues.
Yeah, but I hear some different situation because Jan, you were referring to the choral conductors that are trained to work with high-level professional choirs and that are struggling to find a place where they want to work because of the pedagogic aspect that is a little bit lacking in the education. Do I understand that correctly? And I hear from your side that there is less places for choral conductors, but you refer to schools that are closing their choral program. So are the choral conductors in the United States of America really trained to work with non-professional singers then? Is that
They are. And I was going to say the flip side of this, the thing that I think is working really well is, I think, outside of academia in the United States, there is almost an explosion of interest in creating new choirs. And so, of course, those don't pay very well, obviously, especially if you're starting them from nothing. You'd be lucky to make that your career, but there are many community choruses, semi-professional choruses, professional choruses that are being created more than ever, I would say. I have current doctoral students who have created choruses in other states, and they will go home in the summertime and they will do programs with these choruses. So I think that's a very positive thing. It's outside of higher education, but it is something that I think speaks to, which is, I think maybe we'll talk about it later, is the training of conductors. What are we training them to do? And then in tandem with the number of choirs that are being created, there is so much new choral music being written in the United States right now. I cannot keep track of it. It's overwhelming, and it's easy to find, but it's too easy to find. And so there are just so many young composers, and not so young composers, that are very active right now. And so the repertoire is there, and there are choruses out there. There's just, in academia itself, it's more challenging.
Okay. I'm thinking about what you thought about students being able to work with professional groups. It's been called first world problem by Seán. How do you manage to do that? Because that sounds quite unique in the...
Well, we have, of course, like you said it from the States, a lot of choirs who are professional in that sense that they pay the singers, but who are not a state choir. So, or like a semi-professional choir where people get some money. And so an academy would, for example, hire 16 singers for 1 week, or 16 singers every Tuesday, or something like this, you know. So it is not a radio choir that is, but some of them even do this because they need to show pedagogic approach to get fundings. And of course for them this is a very good chance. But this is only in few cities in Germany. Of course it's absolutely a luxury problem, I know this. On the other hand, I think that we should teach our students that it is always about music, and no matter who is in front of you. And I would say that probably my colleagues agree that with the professional choir you have the same problems like with an amateur choir, but on a different level. So the things that we teach, or the things that we talk about to our students, or the parameters to know, are more or less very similar, you know. And okay, of course it's really a first world problem. But seeing the result that many of these amateur choirs are still having really bad conductors and they are not improving, or also that it leads to the thing that, but that's not only about choral conducting, that's with the same with singers or with piano players. They all want to be big artists, and they all think they're gonna be big artists. And we are not honest to these students, telling them, look, the market is, like you just said, what is there on the market? And I think that's a problem also that some teachers create themselves because they want to keep their own position. So they fill their classroom with students where they know that they will have no chance on the market, just to keep their own position. And I think this is really a problem because we are not honest to the young people. And if we would be honest, we had to tell them, look, you should get qualified in pedagogic things because that will be your work later. You will teach children playing piano or violin. You will not sit in an orchestra and playing a Wagner opera every evening. But be honest about this. And then I think everyone would understand that they need to learn the pedagogic things and need to be able to work with everyone later because that's their reality.
My understanding of American high schools and middle schools is that they have choir as part of the curriculum.
That's correct.
People who do the choral studies, do they supply those teachers?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, certainly from the bachelor's level, and then also to an extent from the master's level as well. And so we have bachelor, master's, and doctorate at University of Iowa. So we're teaching, we're ostensibly teaching for all the levels, for sure, for sure.
But this is, I'm very jealous on your system about this, because that you can really have so many positions still, I mean, on so many levels for a full-time paid conducting position. I think you're the only country in the world probably where you have this.
Because I don't know, in your institutions, if students study choral conducting, are they automatically qualified pedagogically to start working in schools, or is that a separate diploma, or how does it work in these situations where...
In Estonia, it's totally different ways. So if you study in conducting curricula, then you do not have so many pedagogical subjects, and you do not get the license or qualifications to work in schools. Right now we are dealing with these issues that we want to somehow overlap them, because in Estonia I think we have 5 to 7 job places where you get the whole occupation and get the salary while conductor, as a conductor. So this is a huge problem. You have to do something else to survive. So, but the good thing is that in music teacher track in our country, because we have professionally trained music teacher from kindergarten to secondary school, at the end of secondary school. So they get quite the similar training what comes to conducting and practice. Not so much score reading or other issues, but still in a way we try to overlap this curriculum. So they are different.
Yeah, we try the same in Germany, I would say. So if you are becoming a music teacher or a church musician, of course, one of your main subjects is choral conducting. And now I have to say also that in the last years they diversified this a lot in the academies, also concerning styles. So a lot of academies now have of jazz people, or at least an offer of such a choir, because that's obviously you need also in schools now. Or a children choir conducting. So there we have some new professors now in Germany focusing on this to make our colleagues from the schools and churches able to work with all these age groups. So we have the same, and I think it's very useful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the same in Ireland. So the choral conducting is separate from your teaching qualification. I'm the subject leader for music on a teacher training undergraduate degree, so you're a teacher in 2 subject areas, and one is music, and they do conducting as part of that. But the 2 things are separate at postgraduate level.
And it's the same in the United States. So you cannot get a bachelor's in conducting. You can get a bachelor's in music education, of which conducting is part of the curriculum. And I will say probably where the pandemic had the strongest effect was at the high schools and the below the age of 18, those levels of schools. Those are the positions that have disappeared the most. There's not nearly as many anymore, and it came down to funding first of all. That's been the primary. Our schools are funded by the state and so forth, and that funding has been slashed for the arts, so that's been a big issue.
Permanently?
I guess you could say that until further notice.
Yeah, what we see is that, but it's a circle, you have a lack of education for teachers now. As when I compare what I had to do in my studies, seeing what students now have to do and how much they cut, or even, I mean, this is a sad story, but I will not tell the city in Germany, but they accepted people to study to being a music teacher, and some of them could not even read notes, because they are lacking people so much that they accepted some drummers. They said, great, you can study to be a teacher, and they could not read any notes. I mean, this is crazy. And that means, of course, that in this circle, they are going to teach later, but what are they going to teach? How big is the quality? And then this is what you said. So, because that starts now, and we will get the result in our academies in 5 or 10 years.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's one of the main subjects that we talk about in the heads of music and higher education is the pipeline from secondary school into us, and we sometimes deal with quite low levels of notation literacy. We can do a lot in 4 years.
Yes.
We can, but it's a constant questioning of how to bridge that gap between secondary school and where they end up with us in a higher institution.
Okay. That leads us to the next question, and that is how the role of a conductor is changing in your contexts. But I think it's a little bit broader than that when I hear what you are saying, but also what are the new skills that are becoming more important?
Should I do okay? I sit in a bad position. I think we can even broaden this question about the conductors, but also the challenges for conducting teachers. Because also for us, I think things have changed. And when I started, I was sticking quite to my classical stuff. And I think now we have to broaden the horizon much more than before. And of course, trying to be aware of all kind of styles and all kind of new influences that goes beyond the music, of course, like staging elements and whatever. I think that we have to educate ourselves more and more, because our students also need to be much diverse than it was before. And when you look now into advertising, when they apply for positions for church music, for example, what they have to do, I mean, 20 years ago, they played the organ and they conducted the choir. And now they conduct the gospel choir, they conduct the children choir. They go to senior homes and sing with people. And they have social things to do. So it is broadening up so much. Or in schools, I mean, you were talking about COVID. We need teachers now who really can deal with psychological problem of children,
Yeah.
And so we need to offer much more things to our students, I think, to make them prepared to what is their reality later. And so that influence our job as well. I think that we should also stay connected and fresh.
But does that influence your job as a teacher, or does that also influence the curriculum you have to offer to the students?
Both, actually. I strongly agree what you told, because in Estonia we had such a lovely years. Everybody wants to sing in the choir and so on. But now we really have to deal with motivation, how to engage even students, but also all the singers. And we see that this empathy and social skills, they are extremely important now, because people who are coming to sing, they say that I am burnt out and now I would like to, you know, stand up and be part of the family or choir or whatever. So these kind of things are also very important. And those communication skills, that the conductor is not somewhere very high and very autocratic, but it's, you know, one of us, and we really go together, we start this journey. So this is something new, and we really have to also train them in that way.
Around 7 years ago, when we were designing the Masters in Choral Studies, it was great because nothing else existed like this before in Ireland. So we could tailor it specifically for the context, for the context of the country, which meant that the context is we have people from a wide range of backgrounds who are going to be working in a wide range of contexts. So that's who we cater for, which is a blessing, really, because you can develop their skills and adapt to their feedback as well.
I would say, first of all, I hear very common themes among all my friends up here that are happening in the United States. I would say, first of all, you know, I mean, the way I was trained, it was, you know, it's about the music. You prepare the music. You are, as we would say, the sage on the stage. But now it's moving more to the guide on the side, right? So, there is that element. There's also going back to mental health. This idea you hear in the United States a lot now about choirs being communities and not just an ensemble. And that word has a lot of meaning to it, and it has a lot to do with, you know, meeting students where they are, meeting singers where they are, recognizing them as unique human beings and not just music-making machines, but to really, and I would say just as a conductor, you have to be very aware and very cognizant of individual needs and this sense of belonging and community within a choir, and I think that's for the good. Absolutely, I think American society already was a very individualistic society, but now it's really individualistic. I mean, you get your food delivered to your door, you can work from your home, right? And so you could conceivably never leave your home and just be by yourself. Oh, I think probably. And so I think in that context, choir takes on a much more, even more important meaning, something that is far beyond something that makes a beautiful art form, but rather is that community, that increasingly rare chance to bring people together, you know, working in a unified fashion toward this single goal, this communal goal.
Can I ask something to my colleagues? Because I would be really interested. As I get older now, I recognize also that the generation of students is changing. So, and it's very connected to what you said. This is why I ask. And I was a very lazy student, I know. And but I knew it's me, you know. And now the habit or behavior of our generation of students seems to change a bit. So I feel that they see us as, well, we have to deliver our knowledge to them, but that doesn't mean that they are necessarily involved in things. So I had the student, for example, that I told a half year before her exam that I said, I would recommend you to start practicing because you have your exam. And then she answered, yeah, I know, but I don't have time for this now. And then I said, okay, then don't study choral conducting. I mean, I don't want to hear, I don't have time for this, or even from other students, you got blamed, yeah, my teacher did not show me this. I still, it's your responsibility. So, and this is something that I think we were told quite early, this will be your profession, care yourself, because after this study is ended, you're responsible for yourself. And I don't see that happening so much in the heads of students now. I see that, and of course it's a different generation and they have different opportunities, and population, at least in Germany, is getting less and less. So they will all do something, you know, but so they can stand there with open hands and wait. And maybe it was different when we studied, because I was not always lazy, but I knew, okay, if I want to do something, I have to work hard for this. And I feel this a bit going away, and I'm not sure if it's only in Germany, or maybe I'm wrong with that impression. But
it's not just you. Good, Seán. I've talked about this often with my colleagues in different institutions, in my own institution around the world, and everyone's noticed it. I've been teaching at third level for 10 years in my current position, but even in that, I've noticed a change, and it accelerated after the pandemic.
It is right, yeah.
Have you noticed?
Absolutely,
Yes.
yeah. Students are more fragile as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, more fragile. But yeah, I completely agree. I think there's more of a, the fragility aside, there is definitely more of a consumerist.
Yeah, that's the word.
A mentality, I think. So I would also say though that I quite often am. I can't quite think of the right words. Very pleasantly surprised by the levels of inquisitiveness that I see. And
Surprised in a good way, or
in a good way? Okay. In a good way, absolutely. So, and there's a sensitivity there that I think, as long as it's guided in the right way and is a positive thing, can be so powerful for the choir as a whole, that kind of investment. So yeah, it's complex, but I totally understand what you're saying. Absolutely, I see it a lot.
Yeah, and maybe this is something we need to consider also in our education. How can we encourage them to discover that work is really good? I mean, this is when I see my children playing these games, you are rewarded all the time for doing nothing. You are rewarded for sit there. And I was not trained like this, I know I have to work something, then maybe I'm rewarded, and that's something, a mindset maybe that has changed, and we have to deal with that and maybe find ways to encourage students to discover how great it is if you work on something, or if you have to go deep into a score, like you said, for example, and if a piece is not approachable by first hearing, then hear it the second time, and
it's dopamine addiction from
Yes.
the screens.
yes.
Every time you have to sit in a lecture and listen to a lecturer, you're essentially in dopamine withdrawal from the infinite scroll. So that is a new thing that didn't exist 10 years ago. So I think we're only beginning to realize the difference that has made psychologically to students.
I agree.
Let's talk about with screens just for a moment, because that made me think of iPads. So many students use iPads now, and sometimes I've thought, first of all, I think there's something of an equity issue between not all of my students in my choir can afford an iPad, and so the people who have the iPads, they can get all of my very meticulous score marks and edits. They can get them, but the people who have paper, they have to write it all out. So there's an equity issue, and it's based on, honestly, it's probably based on economics. And so I think that's an issue as well. But sometimes, but going back to the screen issue, sometimes I wonder, like from a class management standpoint, I know for a fact that my students, they're reading their music, but they're also getting a text across the top of their screen. And, you know, I can't, there's no way for me as, I can't, you know, I know it's happening, but I can't verify that it's happening right then. So it's a tough thing.
I do have a question. After listening to all what you're saying now, I've been working as a composer and working with groups for 15 years, and this year I returned to conservatory to study choral conducting because I really felt I have to improve technically. And you just said it used to be that a church musician needs to play the organ and conduct the choir, but now there are a lot of other skills. But if I look at my study ECTS list, there I have to ask an exemption to not follow courses for an incredible list of courses with maybe 2 or 3 ECTS points nowadays, where it was very different 15 years ago when I studied. Is what you experience with students that don't find time preparing also a result of adding and adding and adding and adding things to sometimes not very valuable courses to a program because you feel the need but not cutting things that are maybe not fundamentally contributing to the program?
I think I can see that. I'm not sure how much more it is in the end. We would have need to compare with older plans, because I think maybe in my times I had the same amount to do, but probably less broad variety. You know, so I had, for example, it was terrible. I had to play a recorder for 8 semesters. That was absolutely horrible. And it's a beautiful instrument, but not for me. And so maybe now they only have 2 semesters of recorder and 2 of clarinet. I don't know. Maybe it's more nice. But on the other hand, you don't go as deep as you could, and then it gets more stressful. Yeah. So I don't know how it's for you.
I think it's about question how we develop this curriculum, and what we are using is really this feedback from graduates. We're really monitoring how the students are going on, how the studies goes, and of course it takes time a bit. If we see that our national curricula has changed, we have to really react about that. But of course it takes time, but then let's do not forget also continuing education. That we have to admit that within these 3 years we have bachelor 3 and 2 years master. We cannot get you well product or really professional conductor. So we have very good system about continuing education, and these kind of courses here, what we have, this leading voices or this our choral conductors association makes its annual courses week, somewhere Hopsal, very nice and very educative. So this is something also what helps. But yeah, it can be, and there may have been gap because sometimes students do not see yet that this will be necessary for them. But we, as this taking care of these curriculums, we think it is very necessary. But yeah, and if it has been this way, then it needs, kind of openness and empathy, and you really hear them and really look from other angle these issues.
Just to be sure, I didn't want to say that the university where I'm going is not doing a good job, and they are offering a very fine curriculum, but I was just curious about how the things might be connected, and I'm also curious how you did it when starting a totally new program environment.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to talk about first is we had an undergraduate curriculum review. So I had to deal with there's a certain amount of curriculum hours and how are they divided, and it's really tough. You've got 4 years to do it and you want to do everything, but it's simply not possible. So you do have to make difficult decisions in that. And the students themselves, I'm not going to say everything is the fault of dopamine addiction. They have, problems to deal with that I just didn't have to deal with whenever I was an undergraduate. There's a housing crisis in Ireland. Students have to find a house. Accommodation could be, I'm not joking, 4 hours away from the university. They have a massive commute to do. They're working at night to try to cover their rent. So they are dealing with challenges that I was privileged not to have to deal with. And I'm sure we all do, we're cognizant of that when it comes to kind of pastoral care or designing the curriculum. But again, standards should not slip because of that, but we all are aware of the problems that they face.
So I would, first of all, wow, across the ocean, same issues, same issues. I would say at my university, at my School of Music, our curriculum is changing, but I think it's always behind of where it should be. At least in terms of responding to what's happening in the real world. And as we've said, curricular change is slow. It takes a lot of discussion, a lot of debate, and frankly, we all have our little our fortresses, our castles. I was trained in a certain way, and so I like to say I'm open-minded, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, I know what I'm trained to do and what I love to do. Why should I sacrifice what I do for some other part of the, why should I lessen what I do for other, for some other part of the curriculum? And so there's a lot of that, we would call it a silo culture. Where we're all kind of defending our little pieces of the country, of the curriculum, and so that makes it also very hard to have those very tough decisions. And again, it's also a zero-sum game too, because there's, like we've said, there's only so many hours, we call them course hours or credit hours, that a student can get in 3 to 4 years. And so if you add something else needs to come along, and that's tough. I would say, to be frank, right now, the core of our curriculum is still traditional. We've been adding lots of electives around the edges, things in popular music. We have a black pop music ensemble now. There are theory courses in popular music, musicology courses as well, musicology, ethnomusic, more and more ethnomusicology courses, but they tend not necessarily to be required. And so how does the student fit those into their program? That's tough.
So they do it for no credit?
They get credit, but it's not part of their degree requirements. So they're still getting the credit hours, but it wouldn't necessarily, depending on what it is, wouldn't necessarily count toward their bachelor in vocal music education, for example.
Right. So why would they would do it out of interest?
Out of interest, yes, out of interest.
The phrase is cash or credit. That's how you get students to do anything.
There you go.
Probably also it depends on what are focuses that students may like to do. I mean, not everyone is the same.
Right.
So this system of having these optional things, I think, is very wise, because then we have some core curriculum which is important, and it's probably very similar everywhere. And because also the technical basis we need is quite similar, And then if they are interested in other things, then they can do it. And this is, of course, very nice and very practical.
Okay, our next question has been covered a little bit during our first discussion already, but I still want to ask it. Does the education system in your country prepare students well for the music profession, and what could be improved? And maybe we can go the other way.
Thank you.
So I guess I've already talked a little bit about it. I think the model at my institution is still, I would say, a conservatory model. We have individual instruction in every instrument of the orchestra and the wind ensemble. We have voice lessons. We have the music theory and the music history component. We have the large ensembles, and so on. So we're definitely preparing people well for those core competencies that I think you're mentioning. That is very strong. We're also adding in some courses, for instance, like at the graduate level, we're starting to add in courses that have professional development. Professional development. Is that the right word? Elements to them. Talking about different kinds of careers. Maybe it's artistic management. Maybe it's that's the one that comes to mind off the top of my head. Basically, we're really trying to prepare students for jobs outside of academia, because there's just not as many of those positions as there used to be, for sure. So I think it's a lot. We're getting there, but again, I feel like we're always behind where we need to be, and for the reasons I mentioned already. So.
I'm going to talk about jobs inside academia.
Okay.
And talk specifically about PhD students. So whenever I did my PhD, there was no one asked me where I was, what I was doing, anything. That's changed in the last 15 years entirely. And the university that I'm in really does prepare you for life as an academic. You're expected to publish before you graduate. If you look for a job in a higher institution, you're expected to have published. I mean, it's almost like an arms race over the last, especially 10 years. So we prepare the PhD students to do that. You will have been expected to have teaching experience. So we've got a mentorship program for the PhD students, so they can graduate with that experience and with that publication history behind them.
Yeah, in Estonia, what we see and what our graduates say is that they really value about individual lessons. So we have really quite many of them. I counted, let's say, first-year student get at least 6 individual hours per week, and we cover different areas also. So this is something what we really would like to keep on. And I have to say that I am from music education department, but our conducting department leader, who is Hirvo, they are really open-minded, because 3 years ago we had a huge debate that do we need more practical courses with professional ensembles and choirs, and actually it's very hard financially. It's very complicated, but we do have project weeks where they really are part of a different project and can practice also. So I think, and what makes this curricula complicated is that we have to prepare also these non-professional choirs. We have them a lot. Thousands, and then also those 5 or 6 professional places. So this makes our work very complicated, but we really try to do that. So I talked with Conductors Society, head of Conductors Society, and she said that she thinks that we are really doing well at the moment. But you have to always be very aware what is going on nearby.
Yeah, well, I mentioned already that I am not sure if everything is going right in Germany with this preparation. I mean, of course, you can see that they try things and they offer, for example, also for instrumentalists, so workshops or even seminars about self-management or about even public relation. So if you sit next to your phone and wait until it rings, probably you will die as a musician. So you should get some tips how a website should be, or things like this, or how you do your taxes. I mean, things like this, which I think is very useful, of course. If they are all really qualified for what they have to do later, I'm not sure about. I think we try this in some academies to make it broader. Honestly, I don't know how successful it really is, as I said, because then you have too many people with dreams and who are not prepared for a reality. But of course, there are still a lot of people who are well trained for everything they have to do, so I don't want to over-exaggerate our problems. But we in Germany tend to be a bit slow and behind and lazy with changes. So I agree fully with you that we have to keep up all the time, but would also underline what you said, we are probably always a little bit behind where we should be.
Yeah.
And that makes it not so easy to keep going.
Let's keep that dream for how it should be for the end of the session. But maybe first, before we go to that last question, how are digital tools, new musical styles, and social changes influencing music education where you work? And can we maybe start with you for this question?
Yeah. Actually, Estonia is, I hope, still well known with its digital competencies, and what comes to school education, music in schools we really use, but I think it's you do the same things. And Corona time taught us that we can do a lot of things, but not choir rehearsals so well, but actually we did also. So, but I would like to put on the table the social part, because these are some new issues for us. Actually, we had a cohesion concert, What is Human Being? And that was cooperation with the Estonian Chamber of People with Disabilities. And we really, the choirs prepared repertoire, which was then translated with sign languages and everything. And this is kind of new. I'm sure maybe it's not so new in your countries, but in Estonia, now this is the direction we should really think about it and try to add or include those people also. And as you see also in song celebration, we have the sign language translation. So this is something new. And of course, digital issues we use quite a lot in choir concerts. Like in these screens, and this is what makes it more interesting for young ones. I think this is, something like that.
The social project you were referring to, is it in any way also coming into the curriculum of the students that are studying?
No, it's not. It is not yet there, but this is something like we see in our current landscape, this kind of events and signs, and I think we have to think about it. Because what is the new thing, I forgot that as you said, mainly was we trained music conductors especially as musicians, but now we really understand that we have to give them pedagogical and educational ways how to communicate, how to teach, didactic issues and so on. And this is something, now we start this September new reform, curriculum reform, and I think it's one of those issues we have to deal.
When you said online rehearsal, I had a trauma response thinking back to the Corona times, which the online rehearsals just didn't work for me. They didn't work for anyone that I know. But on the other side, composition works really well online. Composition supervisions. With the advancements in MuseScore, which is a free online software, over the last couple of years. I mean, I wouldn't have gone near MuseScore a couple of years ago, but now it's really good, really intuitive, secure, stable. It doesn't crash like Sibelius. That combined with Zoom, and then with AI summary at the end of it, where it gives you a transcription and a summary of the meeting and the action points for the composers. It's actually a really efficient way of teaching composition, and you have a record of everything, and you can send in feedback files. So we use an online learning environment for all modules at Dublin City University, and we work a lot through that, and all the material is put up there, and it's a great way to keep track of things. So some things from Corona did not work at all, but composition is one of the things that I've saved from that.
In terms of technology, certainly, I mean, we're seeing more. I have not done so much myself, but more, using various kinds of screen visual elements. So I think across the United States, I would say generally we're definitely seeing more of that. I did want to talk about the social change element. I think in the United States there were 2 or 3 major events that happened. There was what we called the Me Too movement, which was for women's rights, which was 2017 or so, give or take. And then, of course, Corona, but then also the murder of George Floyd, the black man in Minneapolis. which spurred a huge movement toward equality, racial equality and equity. And so that still is all of that is still very strong. And I think I think we as Americans have become very sensitive to that. We have a lot farther to go, also with LGBTQ rights as well. But we are certainly more sensitive to that than we were even 10 years ago, I would say. I think you see that in our curriculum a little bit already. Again, we have music history courses on women composers and underrepresented composers from various periods. You definitely see it in our repertoire for our courses that we're programming a lot of female composers, a lot of underrepresented composers now at a really high level, and we'll probably I can talk more about that maybe in your next question perhaps. That has been a huge sea change, and it's very exciting actually to be truthful. It's very new.
Yeah, in Germany we are a bit behind technically, and we are happy if our internet works. And and I have to confess that I am a bit conservative. So with scores, etc., I need my printed scores, and I need to be able to write something down with a pen and to turn a page. And but of course we use, and with one of my choirs we only sing from tablets, and there are fantastic things. I think what is a wonderful chance, and many students are using that, is the opportunity to learn new repertoire by hearing. That was always there, but now, of course, everything is accessible with YouTube or whatever. And I think that is a huge thing. I remember when I was a student, I went to libraries, and well, it was great. I love it, yeah. But now you can get everything much easier, much faster, and you have immediately a recording or something, and that's really great when it's about learning repertoire or discovering new composers. I would say that my students use this quite a lot, and of course also here we can discuss how good is that, or how deep it could go, because that's what we said 20 minutes ago already. I also see the tendency that they listen to something they like, and if they don't like it, they click and go to the next song. And that of course leads also to, I mean, I'm always very impressed coming to ACDA, and we met also last time there, and I agree with you that of course the amount of contemporary music that is played, it's absolutely outstanding. But what about the quality?
I will come to that.
So I'm very sorry to face it in such a straight way, but it is something that sometimes we tend to. If you feel comfortable to listen to it, okay, let's do it again, and you get the next commission. But where is the content, and how can we go deeper? And that is also about, I had some students, for example, one wonderful guy from Asia, and he was also getting his whole interpretations from YouTube. And then when I told him, okay, here is a piece for you, and then he came back 1 week later, he said, I could not prepare it, it's not on YouTube. I said, I know, this is why you got this piece. And for him it was really difficult to find a way of interpretation, because he was not used to this. And then in rehearsal he was always looking to me, is it right, is it right? I said, it's your job, So that may be a little problem with that, but I would praise the great opportunities we have through these technical things. I think it's fantastic.
Did you write an app? Is that you?
Yeah, I was expecting you to talk about
the person who doesn't, I'm not technological at all, and you've written the conducting app. Tell us about that.
True. I forgot about this. Well, but this is okay. If you mentioned this, because that is very interesting. We created this app alongside with a book that we published. And if you see the figures of selling, you see that people buy the book like crazy, but not so many people are interested in this app in the end, which is, I think it's very interesting. Okay, sometimes it may take some time until people know about it, so we cannot say surely that this will stay. And And of course, to be critical, is it possible to learn conducting from a book or from an app? Probably it is only working alongside real things, but yeah, we created this app and I'm quite happy with that, but of course also here it's just a start, you know, because there is so many things that Technic can do now which we could not implement in this app just because it's too expensive, to be honest. I mean, create an app, it's horribly expensive, and to think what is possible in future, I think there will come much more opportunities and interesting things. Well, what we hope, of course, with the publisher is that this app could be helpful in countries which are not privileged like the 4 people sitting here, where we have all studies, but there are so many countries in the world where you cannot study choral music or conducting, and they don't have a training program. And maybe for there, just to have the opportunity to see how is a pattern for 4. Great, I can check it here. So hopefully this can help maybe a little bit. And we said this in the session when we presented the app. My biggest fear is that everyone conducts like me after watching this, because please don't do that. But getting ideas how some technical things could look like for this, maybe that could be helpful.
We are approaching the end of this session, but one final question. What would you personally like to see change or grow in higher music education in the coming years? You haven't started yet, Seán.
Well, one thing we're going to have to deal with is AI. And I see there's an AI specialist here. So I hesitate to say it because I didn't get to your session. But this is coming head on, and we are not prepared for it. I can speak from my institutions in Ireland. I went to a session at the Society for Musicology in Ireland 2 weeks ago, and it is terrifying. I said a musicology essay at the start of the semester, and I said you have to have footnotes in it. At that stage, AI couldn't do footnotes. By the time they submitted the essay, it could. And it's going to get more and more and more sophisticated. So either we're going to have to adapt and bring it into our assignments, or go back to pen and paper exams, or we'll have to respond to it in some way. So it's not a change. The change will happen to us, but we'll have to change in response to it.
I want to talk about repertoire. And this is actually a little bit of response to your point, the point you made. I've talked about there's such a wealth of new contemporary music, and you've heard it at ACDA. If you go to ACDA, our national conference is still, even for professional choirs and school choirs, it's still considered really the apex of performance in the United States. If you get your choir on one of those conferences, you're big time. So, but anyway, but the programming at those conferences is 96% things that have been written since 2010. I mean, what I would like as change is a balance between the finest new music that's out there, of which there is. You need to dig. You need to dig until you find it. It's, you can't. I get about every 2 or 3 months I get this big box of music from publishers, and I go nope. I mean, it's just so much, and it's not good quality. So it's hard to find, but that quality new music. But then also, I do feel like. American choirs, we tend to as the old quote is, throw the baby out with the bathwater, and so I would say there are many choirs in this country that are not familiar with the Western European canon, and so I think there's great value still in that in terms of the techniques that you learn from Gregorian chant up to the 21st century. From a pedagogical standpoint, I think there still is a lot of value there. And so I would like to see, repertoire-wise, a greater balance between our heritage, American heritage too, for many Americans, not all, but many Americans, but then also, again, continually evolving and adapting with the new music that's out there. It's like if we don't do new music, then we become a museum, and we can't do that either. So I think a balance can be struck, and I don't see it right now, but I'd love to see it in the United States.
I would take your word of balance. I think that's very nice. That is probably what I would wish, that we find a good balance of deepness of education, but which still is going to the broadness, and that we are not keeping the deepness on the top of the iceberg, but that we manage to get down to everywhere and in the best quality that is possible, and make everyone understand that, like you said, it's about music in the end, about the music and the people, and not about ourselves. And if everyone would understand this, then probably we would keep this choral world alive in a better and broader way, and not getting more and more specialized in our tower of ivory. So then, I think that would be my wish in a perfect world.
And it's practically same that I hope that this conducting and singing in choir somehow be and will be opposite this AI issue. That we really celebrate this human contact and this music making and this moment. And I think that this is the future of choir music. I strongly believe that.
Okay, thank you very much for this discussion. And have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a pleasure.
Oh, what a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue the conversation. I'm looking at the start. Didn't want to say anything. You're the AI expert.
Everything you said was like what I was thinking myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in Antwerp I also supervised some
So I say goodbye.